Hey everyone, welcome to today's Self-Care for Black Girls chat.
Yes, yes.
We're yes, after a long
I feel
hiatus.
like I've been gone for like 2 months, so
Mhm.
figure I'll make a appearance.
Mhm. Yes, a much needed appearance.
Oh, y'all did great.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're in March now, so happy new month. And March is Women's History Month, a month that supports the work that we do here on Self-Care for Black Girls because we are women and we talk about areas of empowerment for other women as well. Women's History Month, celebrated annually in March in the US, is a time to acknowledge and celebrates the contributions of women in history, culture, and society, to reflect on the often overlooked achievements of women leaders and change makers. Some more information on Women's History Month. The observance of this month began as a local movement in California to celebrate Women's History Week in 1978. And this was then later expanded to a national month in 1987.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. See, something, learn something every day.
Facts.
So it's less than 50 years old.
And I think it even originated as a protest for the ways in which women were being marginalized, but now has evolved into just a celebration of women throughout history. Yeah, so here at RS, we're honoring Women's History Month by exploring the stages of growth that Black girls and women go through and the importance of breaking generational cycles as we age and pass down knowledge to our younger generations. To start us off, what identities do you all have as Black women? For example, things like motherhood, being a daughter, an aunt, sister, cousins, etc.
Oh, gosh. You got a name like
Yeah, just like
I would say all of the above. Mother, daughter, sister, cousin, auntie, niecey,
There you go, right?
all of them.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
In ways, shapes, or form, but then you also gotta think of even like your positions in work, so therapist, social worker, leader. You also think like wife, we didn't say that, so then you think about your relationship or your partners, like
My
friendship,
friend,
like all very important to me, because they all have different parts of who I am, right? So I agree, it's a lot of them.
Yeah, I know for me,
Yeah.
in thinking about this question, like I'm not an aunt yet, and like I have baby cousins, but it's very different. Right now they call me aunts, but as they grow older, the dynamics will change. And so it's interesting seeing how even myself, as I grow, what those roles would look like and what kind of support I'd then be offering to the younger ones when the time comes. Yeah. Okay, and next is, how would you describe your relationship with younger Black girls?
How would I describe it? I think for me, I am one of those people who I don't mind being auntie. I don't mind being the auntie in the space, if it's my biological actual nieces and nephew, or if it's other Black girls. I don't mind being that kind of like auntie that will give you some wisdom, or even if people come to me for wisdom, I'm open to sharing what I know, but always with a very clear, like, it's still other ways to do things. You don't always gotta do it even the way I might have done it.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I think, I hope that it's from a place of love always for little Black girls. Cause I can recall not having that mentor or that model or that person that would actually answer or have a conversation with me like I was still human and not talk down at me or talk as if they are the only wisdom in the space and in the room. So I think for me, I take that really seriously when it comes to Black girls, obviously, because that's also the focus of my work in terms of being a therapist. Like I've always been very intentional, especially after I worked primarily with Black and Latino boys. Like, so my foundation was with boys, and I had such a great experience that when I started working with girls, it felt very clear that I had missed something and I wanted to make sure I gave more as a result. So
I love that. For me, I think I'm entering the weird space of the transition from big sis to auntie. For younger Black women and younger Black girls. And I truly admire those who held this space before I did, because I feel like in this space of like becoming auntie or a space of auntie, just like Sharea said, you have the lived experience wisdom. So you have that piece. But then you also have that relatability piece where it's just like I still I can empathize. I understand what you're going through. Like that may not have been the best choice, or this may not be the best way to do something. And my wisdom and my lived experience tells me that. But I can understand why you would have done that. Like I'm not too detached or removed from
Or forgetful, because
or
all of a sudden
forgetful.
everybody,
Right.
nobody was
I've
ever
always
young.
been, yeah, I've always been, saved, sanctified,
Yeah.
but to
Holier than
remember,
thou.
to remember what it was like and to see now, like the work that I do now with young Black girls and how they do relate to me different than before. Before it was just like, oh, hey, and now it's just like, oh, okay. I can see that they're actually looking for not just, that older person to sort of, be there to back them up, but also like pour into them in a way. And it's a responsibility that I enjoy, just like Sharea said, and one that I too take very seriously with having, nieces of my own, but then also just, young Black girls out there everywhere.
Yeah, no, those are all really nice reflections. I'm even thinking about, for me, where I think the most proximity I have to younger girls is like in church, where all the kids are there, they have the youth ministry. And I know there was a moment where they wanted like, my age range to join the youth ministry because like a lot of us had already left the church and we weren't quite fitting in with the adults just yet. And I was just like, I'm not going to join because
Like just protesting.
respectfully, we are at different places in life.
Right.
And even I sat in one of their meetings and I was like, we're just so different. It's like, I'm not fully an adult yet, but I'm still not a youth. And so that led me to reflect more on what stage in life I am at and what my relationship would look like with these younger ones, where like I compliment them, I try to uplift them. I notice them even looking at me as an example sometimes in ways that I didn't see before. And so it makes me more mindful about who I'm portraying myself to be, which is myself, right? Like I still show up with my tattoos, with my piercings, but I'm very much still able to speak to like my experience in life, my background, and try to mentor people who, seek that as well. I've mentored a lot of younger girls, even in my church and in school. And so it's been nice to see those dynamics start to take form. But I still think that there's more for me to do as I get older when it comes to the mentorship, when it comes to being seen as a full auntie, because I'm not ready to claim that yet either.
Well, you got time.
Exactly.
So I think what's
You still
happening,
think
and I think it's actually, that's what I'm saying, like you're in the big sis stage, like you said. And I think it's important to remember those transition stage because each of them have value.
Completely.
Right? Because the big sis stage still sees me doing some of the things that you're doing. I'm just learning a different lesson from it. Right? Versus a auntie is like, I ain't doing that no more.
Yeah.
And I'm also more.
I get why you would want to.
Yeah, I get why you out there.
But I don't want to do that.
But I'm either too old, too settled in certain areas, and or I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And you get to be a little more transparent is gonna be the word I say as an auntie, if you truly have lived your life in a way that you're okay with.
Yeah.
Right, because a lot of it also, when you feel people are like holding back from giving to other Black girls, a lot of it to me is like, you're still having insecurities about your identity. And I'm not gonna jump because I have no idea where we're going.
That does come here.
But thinking about that, I'm like, you're supposed to be the big sis. And you're supposed to know the difference between that youth ministry and me being like, I'm a young adult.
Right.
Right, because you said I'm not quite adult, but that's what that young adult stage is for.
Exactly.
I'm not trying to be in the youth.
Yeah.
Because that's a very different expectation and what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Should be what they're talking about.
Right.
Exactly, yeah. Like, you're able to see that and still know that you don't belong there. Right?
There are people like 30 in youth groups.
No, you is gone.
You have now arrived to pass young adult office. So you to get up out of that youth group.
Let the kids be kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing to notice.
Yeah.
And then as you start transitioning, I think big sis lasts the longest
Mhm.
in that like 20, like mid-20s to like 30s.
Yeah.
And then I think after that, you get to decide, because some people don't want to do the auntie.
They don't, they wanna be like the hot, still like the
Yeah.
relatable,
Yeah.
young, yeah.
And I think that's the sad part of it, because like even when I was younger, like literally looking at who I would call like aunties, like even in the church, like they were all mid-30s, 40s.
Mhm.
But they weren't just like the people like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. They were like no, like I have a job and I'm going to go on vacation and I'm going to do luxury and I'm going to, like, I don't have to budget certain ways. And like,
It was
if you want to do
aspirational.
something, I can give you some money.
Yeah.
Like, it was aspirational. It was
Mhm.
who I looked up to. So like, I know there's this controversy with becoming auntie, but like, I looked at it as like a place of transition, but then also it was like I'm reaching goals
Mhm.
and I'm able to also offer more as an auntie than I was as a big sis. Like
Yeah.
big sis can't give you $20.
Yeah.
I need that for my gas tank.
I think
Auntie
it's
baby can cash at me
Big
$20.
sis still got these student loans coming in.
Yeah, if you want to
all
go,
the time.
yeah, you like, oh, it's college night, I'm trying to go out. Okay, I can cash at me $20. When I was I want to go out later too. As big
Yeah.
sis, so I can't give you. But now it's just like, okay,
Here, I got to get my own out.
yeah, I gotta grab my own. But I look at it as,
That's
as a
right.
place like for the younger generation, but then also for me of like a place of like achievement. And then it is a place like
That's a
so
way to look at it.
you can. I want to relax in this and help this before I become. I don't know after this big mama or whoever.
this big mommy,
I'm
like,
taking
there's like
Big mama, when I become big mama
First
later, when it's just
That's
like,
like great grand.
take everything.
So my
I
big
don't
mama
need
is like
nothing.
great grand.
Really?
Yeah, so then you would just be, I guess, like there's somewhere in between, there's no one
See,
name.
that's what we
Yeah.
call, like, there's like the the 50s, 60s that are like, we would call them big mummies, they're like
Yeah.
very settled.
Mhm.
And then it's like grandma, like, I don't know, for us,
Okay,
like
so-
Nigerians, there's like that range.
Yeah, no, that would be, like big mama is like your great grand.
Mm.
Like you might have I guess the elder or the mom, I don't know. I think on this one,
Mhm.
I think maybe grandma. Mama.
Nobody want me called a grandma. But yeah, my mom, like when you become a mama, I'm like, okay.
And see, I think for me, as I'm getting closer to it, I wouldn't mind, grandma is not the worst word in the world.
There's beauty in every stage.
Yeah, so I think
say.
when you get closer to Indy, like, as you're looking at auntie and you're like, auntie was on no. But eventually it'll be like, cause I'm like, when I think about my babies now, like, one of them, like, she don't call me grandma, she calls me mama, but, but it doesn't bother me, cause it's like, that's what's next.
Yeah.
Like, and some people don't get to that next.
Yeah,
So.
very true.
But you're right, because I'm not like, but still auntie is where I'm putting myself. Like, I got another couple more years, like, God willing, God bless me with some more years, then I'll be like, yeah, I'm a full blown. But I think also people don't want this, they don't want to grow old.
Like, they don't
I
want to be
think-
aged.
Yeah.
So I think even for like Black girls, and we'll talk about that too, right? We're already aged from a very young age.
Absolutely, way
So,
too early.
like way too early. And so for some people, like me now in my mid-20s, I don't want to be auntie because I still have more life to live. Right? And so, but in different spaces, they do treat you as that way.
Younger,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, like even like at events, like the aunties are the ones that serve the food. And so you'll find when the younger
Okay.
Black girls come to serve and they're like, oh, auntie, can I have some? And it's like, no, I'm not auntie. Like
Okay.
you see me as that because of where I am and like the role that I'm playing right now, but it's important to still differentiate it.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
I think that's
And
important too.
I wouldn't want to be called it early.
No, not at 25. I
wouldn't
was
be-
very well nobody's
Yeah.
auntie. I think I was an aunt. I was an actual
I
auntie.
was an actual aunt,
But when we talk
but
about
I was nobody's
nobody's
auntie outside of that.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
if anything, no.
Yeah,
That's a
I'm
no.
a very
Mhm.
reckless auntie. No.
Yeah, I ain't got time for that.
Nah,
Yeah, because I'm like 20. Yeah, not to like no.
Mhm.
Between 25 and 30, I ain't nobody auntie.
no.
Mhm.
30,
Like, I'm
25 to
still trying
maybe
find
even 35.
I'm still trying to find life.
Trying to get these through
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
Go by that.
If you can listen, my let me hold $5. If you can't hold $5,
And it don't impact your life.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're not feeling stressed out.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus now it's like, yeah.
Mhm.
Like, you want something, okay, just let me figure out if you actually, cause I am an auntie that I need you to do your part.
Mhm.
Like, you don't just get because I'm an auntie.
Right.
Like, no, I'm the auntie with expectations.
Mhm.
I want you to do well, but anyways.
Mhm. Well, I mean, we've talked about the stages of Black womanhood and girlhood, and we want to talk about it some more in the sense of ways to break generational cycles.
Mhm.
So firstly, we have the importance of building awareness and also forming your own identity. And this looks like recognizing societal expectations, cultural heritage, and your own personal identity, while also understanding systemic influences on Black womanhood. And thirdly, navigating self-esteem, self-worth, and representation.
Ooh. So that stage, formation, right, if we think about it, is so important to all the other stages to come.
Mhm.
Because really, I think as Black girls and women, we're not always given the time to do this. We're not always given the time to kind of personally identify ourselves, really, I'm trying not to use clinical terms, really move ourselves away from our families and see ourselves as ourselves within our families. Being able to do that becomes this place where you actually are, I'm just gonna use disassociating from your family by becoming your version of the member in that family, which is your personal identity within the family. And I think a lot of times, because of how Black culture looks,
Yeah.
we become enmeshed in our families
Mhm.
without having the ability to truly like blossom,
Yeah.
to be our full selves. And a lot of that comes from our different systemic issues around oppression, but also some of the systemic issues around like how we oppress each other
Yeah.
in terms of identity and differences within how we can present Black womanhood.
Mhm.
And so I think this stage is so important because I think without it done in a way that honors mistakes, that honors confusion and questioning and being able to not have to be exactly the way you were just a year ago.
Mhm.
I think without honoring all those things, it can easily start feeling like, am I being fake? Am I not being myself? Or who do I have to be loved?
Completely.
So I didn't get off my butt still.
No, that's good. Stay on it.
No, as you were
I
saying,
told y'all I missed y'all too.
no, as you were saying that, I thought about also the role that trauma plays in stealing a lot of this stage from people, where when something traumatic happens, you don't really get the chance to still build yourself or get to know yourself because you're stuck on survival, or you're stuck on trying to mend that situation, that by the time you're even maybe in your mid-20s, you look back and you right, 50s,
Yeah.
you look back and you realize I never got to know who I am as a person.
Yeah.
I've just been stuck on trying to live and get through each day, trying to be loved by those who maybe were unable to give me that same kind of love that I wanted or needed.
Or
Now,
constantly abandoning ourselves.
completely.
The same way that we were in our own childhoods or in our experience of love. Because a lot of that, I mean, I think when we don't resolve that form of trauma, especially when we think of it from not just family trauma, but societal trauma, it can become real easy for you to just skip through all those processes and be 50, 60 and successful by paperwork.
Absolutely.
But not emotionally and spiritually really true to your identity and fullness. And I think it's critical for us as Black people now, especially, to start really giving people the space to be different within our Blackness. Because I feel like for a long time, that's the thing that holds us hostage to having to all look the same, having to all do the same, however, also, and not realizing that that isn't even culturally correct. Like, you're supposed to grow and develop within the family, and it doesn't have to look like everybody else. And trauma is a huge factor, right? A huge factor. Because even just walking and existing in Blackness and Black womanhood and girlhood, you don't get the same privileges as other girls to just be or make mistakes or to be as loud or to laugh a little bit, like, and it not be questioned what y'all doing. You know, so it's important, and I think we've not always done the best job.
Completely. a shameless book plug, Mame by Jessica George. It really explores what we're talking about now in a way that's so beautifully done. And yeah, highly recommend. The next stage that we have here is healing and unlearning. And this looks like addressing generational trauma, societal conditioning, and internalized messages. Also exploring therapy, spiritual growth, and self-care as healing tools. And lastly, unpacking things like the strong Black woman stereotype and prioritizing your emotional well-being. This is a stage that not everyone gets to do in a time that even fits their like formative stages of development,
Absolutely.
either because the resources aren't there to, embark on this healing journey, or they don't even know how to do it. Like that lack of education, that lack of access, lack of support systems as well.
And I think even though we've done a better job, we still struggle with stigma around seeking outside sources for help that don't look like what we're familiar with. So like that big sister, that church, right? If we don't see ourselves or see ourselves getting the help that we are familiar with, struggle is still there to get to therapy. The struggle is still there to get to therapy and release and be vulnerable, right? Because now people come to therapy because it's like an in thing to do. But when you get there, you have to be fully willing to be vulnerable and honest while making sure you have the right partnership or collaboration with the therapist, because that does matter if you're going to be vulnerable, because it could also bring up other trauma as well. But I think those things are still stigmatized. And it becomes real easy for us to say, I've done the work.
Right.
And I just read some books, or I did some, scrolling through Facebook or social media and got a 30-minute clips. And I think those are good ways to support your healing. But that vulnerability of being able to like truly come in and do the work related to unlearning, because there's a specific around like unlearning trauma or things that may have happened to us in our journey. I think that becomes still something we struggle with.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, and I can only speak to my experience with some of my Black female or women, or even girls that I work with, is that sometimes it just takes us a little longer to get to the full vulnerable. And I've had clients where I could tell you I've known early in the relationship that they were either abused or hurt by someone, and it took a year for them to even share it with me. Even though they were coming faithfully and being on my, and so it's like, it's just and because I approach healing from a no time frame, like unlike some insurance companies, I feel very strongly that still is okay. Right. However, it just still speaks to the stigma that relates to, if I share too much, what could happen to me?
Completely. Yeah, I mean, a lot of what you're saying too even ties to like one, just shame that people feel for what they experience. Where there's that fear of judgment, or there's that internalized guilt for almost like, oh, maybe it was my fault, right? And then there's also the hush hush mentality that's very common in the Black community. This idea of we don't talk about family business outside, exactly. And that hinders a lot of Black women from even getting support, even from something like just their friends, like sharing vulnerable things with their friends.
Being fully honest.
Yeah, they keep so many secrets that it piles up, and then it's like, who am I if I'm not lying about who I am?
And sometimes you begin to believe the lies. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because even those lies of that I'm hateful towards myself, I don't like who I am, I don't like the things I do. So then I'm telling these stories, but that also means I'm reinforcing them and internalizing them. I know you said internalizing them as really who I am, when really, would you be that without the trauma? Would you have no voice if someone didn't take it? Right. So I think it is important for us to really, in this stage, partner with individuals who are trained to deal with or understand the depths of trauma related to us individually, but also culturally.
Completely. Third, we have empowerment and redefining self. And this looks like setting boundaries, advocating for self, and embracing authenticity. Also cultivating self-love, resilience, and a supportive community. And thirdly, breaking silence around mental health, relationships, and systemic oppression.
I think this is the stage everybody thinks they're in. So mean, forgive me, everybody, but it's true. Like everybody around you, everybody's healed up. Or I'm healing. oh, I've done my work.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
don't think that that's not true, because work is a process, which also means it's ongoing, because you can continue to do work even when you slip back to some areas related to how you've learned around trauma. However, I think this is where we wanna say we are.
Mhm.
And I also think sometimes we misuse some of those, and we talked about this previously before, I think, we sometimes use some of these things to kind of also still reinforce what we got from our trauma. So we set boundaries, we cut everybody off. But you don't realize you cutting everybody off also could be a form of avoidance,
Right.
because you try not to be vulnerable enough to get to know.
Absolutely.
Or you don't trust yourself to make decisions in relationships where you can say, I need to leave this early enough before it becomes abuse,
Mhm.
right? So it's like, on one hand, you sound healed. On the other hand, it could still be connected to your unresolved trauma.
Mhm.
And it just feels like I'm setting a boundary, right?
Yeah, even just knowing how to have conversations, like
Absolutely.
you said, for some people, setting boundaries means cutting everyone off, but you don't even talk about it.
Yeah.
It's just like,
You just got
you just disappeared, like, you need
You've
to
been
be,
ghosted.
right? Like, be able to build those communication skills, know how to resolve conflict, because not all conflict has to result in ending
Ending,
the
yeah.
relationship. Like, some things do have to end for the sake of your own mental sanity.
Absolutely agreed.
Right?
That's no
Mhm.
question.
Yeah, but sometimes it's also okay to give people a chance, and also to know that when you mess up, there's still room for reconciliation. It doesn't mean that it's completely over.
There's room.
Yeah.
And I think just the way we talk about healing by saying, like, well, I'm healed. I've done the work. And it's like, no, it's an ongoing process. And a lot of the times, people who are healed or have done the work, it's because they have removed themselves for good reason. They've removed themselves, but then you're going to have to interact, if not with that exact person, maybe that personality type or that situation
It's coming
again.
back.
And then what you gonna do?
Seriously.
And then it's
coming to
just
work. It's coming to work. It's coming to church. It's coming,
Yeah.
right? It's gonna show up somewhere where you don't get to control the environment as much, right? Because then, unless you're gonna quit all your job, like
Exactly.
never have. And I guess there's that possibility, right? In
Yeah.
a world where you could do everything from home and never deal with anyone.
But now
Now that's,
yeah,
like, are you living a full life?
Right.
Are you able to make relationships where you can communicate
Mhm.
harm in a way that says, don't do this again, or it may end
Mhm.
in us not being able to be friends or partners or whatever the case is.
Mhm. So it's like, are you healed or are you amputated? Like, did you
I know
just
that's right. That's good. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Are
right. You just released.
Take that.
Yeah.
Are you healed?
Don't be amputated.
Because that is a good way to look at it, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like you just, and now you have no access to using that limb,
Right.
like relationship. Like, that's
Right.
awesome. Oh, look at you.
Right. Frame that.
Stand.
Right. And then fourthly, here we have liberation and breaking cycles. And this looks like actively disrupting generational cycles of trauma, financial insecurity, or unhealthy relationships. Also creating new traditions, wealth, and mindsets for future generations.
All of that.
And thirdly, empowering others through mentorship, activism, and leadership.
If we could be so lucky to get here,
Mhm.
because sometimes our lives don't have the extension, but even I feel like sometimes in our modeling of behaviors, we can get here to help people, right? Because even without words, some of these things that you said, like breaking financial insecurity,
Mhm.
looking at even like how legacy has changed, and wealth is not just about, say, money, but also health and
Yeah.
security
Yeah.
and relationships and all the things that make us whole. And so when you think about that, if getting there is, like on the scale of the hierarchy, you've actualized, like in a way that is about also, to me, collectively giving of yourself,
Yeah.
even sometimes without physical giving, because you represent something that people can aspire to.
Right.
Yeah, and these stages are also they're not one by one.
At all.
Sometimes you can be in one stage and another stage
In different areas
simultaneously.
too.
Exactly. And so someone who is still in the healing and unlearning stage could still be breaking cycles for younger generations by communicating, by being vulnerable. and
Absolutely,
passing down
by
what
going
they're
to get the
learning.
work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or saving money, or
Right?
or investing, or right, like there's so many areas that when we look at our wholeness, and I don't think we're really gonna talk about it, but when we look at our wholeness, when you're breaking cycles, you gotta give yourself credit in the areas that you are able to do it at in any of these stages.
Mhm.
That's not an easy task when there has been systemic oppression that is out of your individual control. And so I think giving yourself some credit that, I might still need to, and I feel like this for all of us, I'm still working on things and I continue to work on them because they sometimes come up because I didn't
Yeah.
even see them.
Mhm.
They're my blind spot, right?
Mhm.
But I also know enough to say that that's still not gonna take away from the accomplishments that I have done and the things that I can say, here's how I've done it.
Yeah.
And I hope somebody else can do it too.
Yeah.
You know?
Completely. All right, so now we're gonna dive even deeper into how to break intergenerational cycles. And these are kind of just tips that we can utilize to get through these stages that we've just gone through. First, you have acknowledging the patterns. This means recognizing and naming the cycles of trauma, silence, or limitations. Also recognizing the roles that you've seen women around you play and the roles that you want to play, which is why I started us off with reflecting on the roles that we play in our lives and relationships, because that all matters into knowing what we want to keep and what we want to change. And two terms that have come to mind is being a supporter or an antagonizer, where some women really are antagonistic towards the younger generation and they don't realize that they're doing it. They're this judgmental, dismissive, belittling, superficial like role or character, whereas the aim is to be genuine, caring, respectful, and intentional.
Mhm.
And sad for them because what you're doing is the thing that was done for you to become that character, right? Which, because to me, a lot of that is about because you are insecure
Mhm.
and you actually may not truly have your full identity as who you really are. Like you present something. And so you're afraid that if you help others or if you support others, that you're somehow gonna leak out and not have enough.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna give it away. Because who's promised tomorrow, first off? But secondly, if I give it away, then more of us have it.
Right.
Like the concept to me seems so simple, but to a lot of people and a lot of women, because we've been trained to be competitive versus collaborators, a lot of times that becomes the only way they know to survive or believe they'll survive.
And I was gonna say, even in the friend group, to just go back to like, sometimes we aren't even vulnerable with our friends because of that. Like, what have we been taught from a small age as girls? Like, oh, girls are catty, girls are this, don't tell this, because as soon as you're not a friend, she gonna tell all your business. And da-da-da-da. So it's like we've been socialized to have this innate distrust for other Black women.
Absolutely.
And how harmful that really is in the long run, because then you don't become vulnerable and then you don't allow yourself to receive the support or the guidance or the mentorship that when there are women that are genuine and intentional want to give, you're just like, no.
And a lot of that also is real mother wounds. We don't want to speak to the reality that sometimes, and I say mother wounds, it doesn't have to be your biological mother. It can be a caregiver that wasn't a symbol of mother. But a lot of that also is how we acculturate our daughters, is that you have to be strong.
Yeah.
And so what we end up doing is we backbite very early. We talk behind it. Like, and we've seen our mothers and our aunties all do this, where it's like the person leave the room and you're talking about them. And it's like, so we already leave the room. But we're treating it, you're also creating mistrust, right? Without even knowing that's what we're doing. And I think that goes into a cycle that we also need to break. Because I feel like you can have conversations about other people when they're not in the space, but it also still needs to honor that you care about them. It's when it becomes like you're trying to talk. Like, I would be clear with even as I got older, I was very clear with, like, because all of us got family that gossip, right? I would be clear with did you tell them?
Right.
Exactly.
Did you tell them?
Matter of fact, they're right around. Come there.
Or if you didn't tell them, tell me, because I want to make sure that you don't get mad if I tell them.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't want this to be a norm for us to continue a pattern that says, if we could talk about someone and they failing in life,
right,
versus actually have the conversation and say, oh, are you okay? Or how can I really support you?
Right.
So it also shows your intention. Are you just
right? Do you want to support?
Right. Or are you trying to uplift that person?
Exactly. So I think it really does matter.
It does. Right. And next we have prioritizing mental health. And again, this can look like seeking therapy, coaching, or spiritual guidance. Therapy can help you build your communication style, learn how to build rapport, and also to process your own emotions and childhood trauma or experiences.
And I also think when we talk about therapy, we only talk about it from an individual basis. But there's some of us just aren't ready to do the one-on-one. But there's groups, there's support groups, there's groups that's specific to certain issues. I think finding your way to navigate till you're either comfortable, because some of the stuff is going to really require you to dig deep if you're ready to go there.
Yeah.
If you're not, that's okay too. Sometimes like everything ain't got to be resolved in this moment. So, but I do think also when we think of mental health and therapy, we can also think of like collective ways to do it. If you know you're not ready to share your story, but your story sounds familiar or similar to this group setup, let me just sit in this space so that I can hear what other women are doing, what other Black women do to try to get through workplace, how they try to self-love. Like I'm talking to someone right now as a client, and I'm like, she's doing great work individually, but because one of the areas that she struggles with is socialization, I was like, you need to go to groups. You can still see me once a month, but I want you to start going to a group. We're gonna pick a group. We're gonna pick a group related to your issues and the areas that you're most concerned that we're working on. And you're gonna go there so you can also start finding connection and also not being isolated in your trauma.
I love that.
Like, I think we forget that. And I think, because we're guilty, I'm guilty, I'm a therapist. I was like, girl, good to help. Get that. But sometimes our insurance also ain't paying nothing. So we need to go and find other methods. Because I'm thinking for my client, that's a $15 that she has to pay a group session. That's much easier than I don't want to go to any help.
Right.
Seriously. And shameless plug, I do have a group therapy starting that focuses on all things love.
Oh, yes.
Self-love, relationships as well, romantic love, familial love. And so if you're
shout out to the bad supervisor Sharea for not knowing it. All y'all. It's on me, but
it was a perfect transition.
Absolutely.
So if you are interested, hopefully it'll be in the description below to sign up. It's $10. We meet bi-weekly on Tuesdays at 7:30, and you can sign up for each session that you can join. So it's not required, but it'll be a really great group, a good sense of community, and to talk about these things that are coming up now.
And I think shameless plug, I think all the areas that we talked about today dwell in self-love because your identity starts at the beginning of all of that work that automatically makes it healthier for you to get to the next transition.
Absolutely.
So no shameless plug because it's actually
it
does need it.
Okay, and next we have financial literacy and wealth building. And this looks like shifting from survival mode to generational wealth strategies, and also passing down knowledge about finances to younger generations, investing in them in areas that you can best support them.
Absolutely. I don't know why we hold and I guess you know what, let me not say I don't know why, because I understand the systemic areas of money and the oppression. A lot of us feel like once it's out of our hands, it's gone.
Yeah.
And a lot of us weren't taught from like a perspective of giving actually helps you to receive more.
Apart from tithing.
Yeah. Apart from tithing. Right, apart from that. But when we think about it, it's like, when I get some knowledge, I want to share it to the mountaintop, even if, because here's the thing, I'm just not going to be here forever.
Yeah.
And why do you want to hold hostage and take it to your grave when someone else behind you can then take it, and then because you shared it with them, they're more likely to do what? Share it with someone else. And just like that, you create legacy without even having it to be your dollar amount. Because I think, and I hope that anyone who knows me personally, especially when it comes to this area, if you ask me and I know the answer, I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be like, that don't sound good, but if you do it, sounds good to me because I'm a supporter. That's just a part of my personality. However, I'm going to still give you some that's a good idea. However, look at this. Because now I've learned some lessons around finances. I've learned some lessons around buying things or property, if I'm going to learn it, why not?
Right.
Not everyone feels that way, but that goes back to the antagonist versus supporter.
Completely. They see it as a threat to them.
Gatekeeping.
That's a good one. Yeah. See you on a roll over there. Because it is gatekeeping.
Yeah.
But what are you gatekeeping?
Exactly.
Because you won't own all the wealth.
Yeah, having that mentality, like it's me, like you said, me giving, whether that's emotionally or financially, is going to then I'm just gonna start seeping.
Yeah.
It's going to spill out of me and I'm gonna have nothing
But
left.
talk about the self-esteem of that. Because to me, I hear that you still don't feel whole enough.
Right.
to give
Mhm.
versus it being that person can take from you.
Mhm.
Cause I'm like, when everybody was like, oh, well, they can steal your stuff and this and that, I'm like, let them steal it. That means they gonna heal 5 other black women? Go to go. If you wanna talk black joy like I talk black joy, go for it. If you wanna talk black women, cause guess what? It
Yeah.
ain't only me.
Right.
Like, and it's a lot of us who need it. So guess what? You should get some, I should get some, and then that way they all can get some.
Yeah.
And same with money. Same with money. Like, I have no idea why people, well, I do, like, how to cop saying, I don't know. It bothers me that we're still mindset wise in the thought that I can't give because somehow I'm gonna.
But that also shows that they're still in the survival mode, right? Because this tip is to shift from survival mode to generational wealth, and some people have not been able to make that transition. And so as a result, it's always a competition. It's always almost like a kill or be killed, where I need to fend for myself, and y'all figure it out.
Which is also why people keep secrets around money.
Completely.
Because like, I got this good tip, I'm gonna hold it on. Well, if I got a good tip and I can figure it out and it works for me, because I let him make sure the tip work before I pass it on. Let me figure this out first. And then I'm like, oh, you should try this way. Don't mean you have to. I'm always a person, you should try.
Yeah.
I'm gonna offer it if you want it.
Right. I offered it. You don't want it. You don't want this coupon.
Well, because also on the other side of that, when we think about mentorship or mentees, a lot of it also is still wrapped in trauma. Can I trust that person? Are you gonna backstab me? Are you gonna make me feel stupid? Like, a lot of the not getting the support you need sometimes is not just, it's not there to be given. It's that I can't receive it.
Right.
Because I also am still struggling with, am I making the right decisions, or will I be, because sometimes our ego is just, I'm too proud to ask for help. I'm too proud, right? So there's areas that makes it hard.
That also made me realize there's also that fear of, if I give this advice and it doesn't work out for them, are they gonna now blame me? And so for some people, they don't even want to give advice because it's like, I don't want to get involved if you mess up. But it's like, you pass on the knowledge.
My thing is, I'm telling you with a disclaimer, this is what worked for me, and how I may have done it. You might be able to do it quicker
or better.
Yeah. I learned some lessons around money early from someone who had never even really knew me. She just sat down and was like, oh, girl, I just heard you talk about your 401k, da, da, da. She was like, oh, okay, you don't have kids. You don't have this. Go and get a disability insurance as well, because that's probably gonna be more important than a life insurance for you if something happened and you can't pay for your rent because you don't have right. So it's something that simple that was like, oh, I didn't even think about disability insurance as a 20-something-year-old.
Yeah.
Because I have a mom, she gonna take care of it. Right? No, but that also is, she's not gonna pay my salary.
Right.
So even just a simple, a giving person, and then I started with, oh, now I wanna learn more. And then as I'm learning more, I could ask her questions. She was really big on investing in real estate and all that kind of thing. So I could ask her questions that when I got ready to buy my house, and we weren't even working together anymore. When I got ready to buy my house, she was the first person that I called to be like, here's what I'm thinking, is a condo smart, this, that, and she was like, well, let's think about the numbers according to where you wanna be. That little conversation gave me opportunity down the road to have money saved. And to then, when I do wanna buy a home, have opportunities that could allow me to still have other things. So I think when we give, it's important to then give someone else.
Especially
And
because
test it first.
there's not, in my experience, a lot of Black women who will sit with you and have those type of conversations, either they don't have the knowledge themselves, or like you said, they're gatekeeping it, because it's just like, oh no, then everybody.
And in this case, she wasn't Black.
And so that,
Like,
and
and that's
so,
sad to say, but I'm looking back, this was, and now this is literally almost 22 years ago, right? Yeah, because I was like 20. Yeah. So, but that shows y'all my age anyway. Like, I'm very proud of my age, but that was really someone who didn't need to do that for me. But she's very much a feminist still to this day, older woman. She was very much about passing on her knowledge to other women, right? And in her case, she just happened not to be a Black woman, but she would have no problem with passing that on and me passing it to other Black women, because she also understood the oppression of women of color, right? So I think that is important too. Like, you now got information from some other source that has worked. Now bring it home.
Yeah.
Completely.
Like, I'm doing well, I want my brother to do well. I want my sister to do well,
Right.
you know?
Now, I know with time, we have to, I'll go through these last three a bit quicker. So next we have embracing vulnerability and self-care. And this looks like redefining strength to include softness, healing, and joy. And also leading by example. This looks like sharing mistakes that you've made and lessons learned from those mistakes so that people don't have to repeat them or go through the same things. This ties right into community and mentorship, where we as Black women can uplift and support other Black girls and women through shared knowledge. And also lastly, reparenting and conscious parenting, where we can raise our next generation with new perspectives and healthier emotional tools.
All that.
Yeah.
I talk too much. Look, I'm bad.
No,
They gotta
it
do a
was-
curve for my talking.
No, it's all good and it all fits into exactly what we talked about, the mentorship
Absolutely.
and embracing vulnerability and your self-care and bringing up the next generation. That's all.
And I think the modeling,
Mhm.
like, at some stage, you may not be ready to be the wisdom that speaks it, but at least let people see it.
Yeah.
Let people know that it's there for them to get as well,
Mhm.
even if you're not ready to do the actual individual or group mentoring.
Yeah.
Completely. And like I think Sharea mentioned at the beginning, this requires authenticity. You have to feel confidence in who you are and in your own journey to be able to even talk about it openly and to share it with other people. So if you find yourself feeling hesitant to pass down knowledge, to pass down mistakes, and to speak openly about them, then maybe that's a sign that you need to do more inner work to find that authenticity, to find that
At
self-confidence.
any age.
At any
Mhm.
age, right? So that you feel empowered and then you can then move on to empower other people around you.
And if you're hypocritical, and I'm just gonna add this on, as if if you find yourself to be hypocritical of a younger generation, it's possibly a reflection of what was not resolved in your youth. Because that becomes more about criticizing yourself and or what you did not have access to.
Yeah.
Right? And so shaming them because they have opportunities that are different, shaming them because they may have access to earlier than you,
Yeah.
shaming them because they are having soft lives or luxury, like
Mhm.
shaming them in all the areas that you should be happy to see
Right.
us have the
Right.
opportunity to have.
Right.
I want more people to have Black joy.
Mhm.
I want more Black women to be soft.
Mhm.
And in a way that still honors that you can also be a hard worker and be soft, right?
Yeah.
I want Black women to be able to have whole opportunities.
Yeah.
And so I think when you're hypercritical of those areas and you're looking at younger people in that, with that eye or that lens, I think it might be time to do some self-reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hard to hear, but I'm just saying.
It is. I
Check
had a
yourself.
client who was calling like the adults in their life joy killers. And it cracks me up.
Hell yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
About this term, but like she was so for real, like these are joy killers in my life, and like this is why. But it is important to not be a joy killer and to really assess. You can hold people accountable and encourage them without being a joy killer.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Mhm.
That ain't how we did it.
Right.
Well, because you also didn't have all these different things or different,
Exactly.
like, stop it.
Mhm.
Just stop it, because you weren't perfect.
And it's not how your grandmama did it.
Exactly.
You did it, it's not how your
Because
grandma.
remember what she said about your skirt? Don't let it slip.
Exactly. Oh, yes. Oh, don't say the slip.
Sorry.
As Black women, we're often tasked with learning and unlearning rights from a young age. Society adultifies us from a very young age, and sometimes our families also perpetuate these same expectations, leaving us to learn to fend for ourselves when we should be nurtured and given space to find ourselves. This is why it's important to do the unlearning that we need, whether it's through therapy, group, individual, etc., prioritizing our own self-care and wellness, seeking spiritual guidance if you have a faith belief, and also building our community of women who help us along the way. Trauma, when not dealt with, can be passed down to younger generations, daughters, nieces, cousins, siblings, students, etc. It's only right that we give ourselves a chance to heal and empower our younger ones so they're not subjected to the same trauma that we experience. And I want to add as well, healing our own inner childs.
Yes. She said a mouthful, but what I hear in summary is do your work, not just say I'm doing the work. Do your work, share what you know has helped, and see if people can use it. And be joyful, like get some time to take care of yourself and enjoy life, like at all ages.
Yeah,
Because I think even as an auntie, there's a way to enjoy life without shaming yourself or feeling like you don't still have experiences that are in front of you. And then continue to learn about yourself and all the Black women that might help you to be a better you.
Excellent. Wellness tips?
Drink your water, sis. Get your body moving at least 30 minutes a day. I'm actually trying to get back on this on some serious, so it's been really fun to try to figure out different ways every day. Make sure that you are balancing your diet with incorporating vegetables and fruits as we enter into the first day, or excuse me, while we're recording this, the first day of spring. It's actually, it's actually important. Make sure that you get some of that outside to get that vitamin D, that take that walk so that you can hit a few of them at once. Make sure you're resting or taking opportunities to rest. Oh, we got action out in the.
I was like, not the police.
Police in our area. Exactly. Find time for joy as they come be the joy killers. And compassion. And I'm gonna add one today because today I also did a mammogram. And so I was thinking one of the tips that we should talk about that is also very important to incorporate health checkups. Make sure that you are doing it according to your age, your body, and what you need. That could be dental care, in my case, breast care. It could be sexual health because I have a GYN coming up in the next month, and the dentist the following month, right? So making sure that you're doing your health checks according to your age, your health, and for those who may not possibly have insurance, make sure that you're reaching out to some of the local clinics while they are still available to us to make sure you're getting the support you need for your health along this journey.
Heavy on while they're still available to us. Because even things like Planned Parenthood.
Absolutely. Which bothers me so deeply that we don't understand the difference of how that helps sexual health in multiple areas, in multiple ways than just abortions. Exactly. So I wanted to add that one today since that's what I did before I came here and was thinking that's a tip worth bringing into as well. Just check your health checks. So that's what I think about going.
Completely. And now we're moving on to gratitude. So what are we grateful for this week, this month, today?
I am going to start. I'm grateful for these two beautiful, beautiful young and younger. I don't even know what we call it. I just call them all young, but great humans who actually make and challenge me all the time, but in a way that helps me to continue to grow. And also very supportive. They just do what they got to do when I take vacations, when I'm going off for the seasons. And I appreciate that because I'm very grateful because I do know what it's like to not have that. So I'm grateful.
I am grateful for health. I'm grateful for health, and I'm grateful for all of the big mamas and aunties and big sis and little sis out there and babies that have influenced my life and that I have the honor and the privilege of having influence over theirs as well.
Definitely. I think along the same lines, I'm very grateful for the relationships that I have with the women in my life. It's something that I've been thinking about throughout this week, especially with like friends moving away, making new friends, and just thinking about people come and go throughout my life, but the ones that have stuck have really stuck and showed up for me. And that goes from like my workspace, my mom, my sister, my friends. And so it's been a good week of being intentional and continuing to be intentional to invest in their relationships and also acknowledging just how thankful I am for those relationships.
I'm gonna do one round because I have a client right now.
Yes.
In terms of therapy. So I'm gonna do one round of affirmations. I'm gonna start it so we can get this going. I'm gonna start with saying that I am enough as I am.
My trauma does not define me, and the ones below me deserve even better opportunities.
I have a right to change my mind.
There you go. Y'all take good care of yourselves. Be well.
See you next month.